What if I told you some of the facts you believed your entire life are nothing but history's clickbait? From kings who never did what the movies show, to scientific myths that were literally invented by marketing departments. Today, we're tearing through 20 of the biggest lies in history that fooled entire civilizations. Get ready, because by the end of this video, you'll realize your brain has been running on fake news for centuries. 1. Napoleon was short. Everyone's heard the jokes about the tiny French guy with the massive ego. But here's the truth. Napoleon wasn't unusually short at all. He was around 5 feet 6 inches to 5 feet 7 inches, which was perfectly average for men of his time. The short label came from a mix-up between French and British measurement systems and was pushed hard by British propaganda to make him look ridiculous. Imagine being one of the most powerful men in history, and your eternal legacy is a height roast that wasn't even true. 2. Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake." Or did she? Nope. She never said it. The phrase first appeared in the writings of philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, years before Marie Antoinette was even famous. Historians believe it was later pinned on her to paint her as a clueless, out-of-touch queen. The truth? She probably didn't even know people thought she said it. Yet she's remembered forever as the spoiled royal who served dessert to starving peasants. Talk about a bad PR team. 3. Einstein failed math. This one spread like wildfire because it makes every struggling student feel better. See, even Einstein failed math. Except he didn't. Einstein was a math prodigy. By the age of 15, he was already acing advanced calculus. The myth likely came from a mistranslation of his school records, or people confusing him with the fact he sometimes clashed with teachers. The reality? Einstein wasn't bad at math. The rest of us just hoped he was. 4. Vikings wore horned helmets. Picture every Halloween costume, cartoon, or heavy metal album cover. Big blonde warriors with horns sticking out of their helmets. Truth? Pure fantasy. Archaeologists have never found a single Viking helmet with horns. The image came from 19th century opera costumes, where designers wanted something dramatic on stage. Real Viking helmets were plain and practical, because nothing says, "Please stab me in the head," like giant handles on your skull. 5. Chameleons change color to blend into their surroundings. Sounds logical, right? Wrong. Chameleons don't change color for camouflage. They change based on mood, temperature, and communication. A relaxed chameleon might turn green. An angry one could flash bright yellow or red. Sure, they can sometimes look like their background, but camouflage isn't the main trick. The idea that they're nature's perfect ninjas is just another colorful lie. 6. The Great Wall of China is visible from space. This is the classic classroom myth. Teachers swore up and down that astronauts could see the Great Wall with their bare eyes from the moon. Sounds epic, except it's pure nonsense. The wall is long, yes, but it's narrow and blends into the landscape. Astronauts have confirmed again and again, you can't see it from space. You'd have a better chance spotting a Walmart parking lot. Yet the myth is still in textbooks, proving once again humans love a good lie if it sounds cool enough. 7. Diamonds are rare and priceless. Nope. This is marketing genius, not geology. Diamonds are actually common. What made them expensive was a monopoly. In the 20th century, De Beers hoarded diamonds, choked supply, and then launched one of the most successful ad campaigns in history. A diamond is forever. They didn't just sell rings. They sold an idea, and people still fall for it. That shiny rock on your finger, it's not eternal love. It's a receipt for one of the slickest scams ever pulled. 8. Vikings were filthy savages. Movies and TV love to show them as dirty, blood-soaked barbarians. But actual history? Vikings bathed more often than most Europeans of their time. Archaeologists have found combs, tweezers, and even ear cleaners. In fact, Anglo-Saxon women supposedly preferred Viking men because they looked and smelled better than their local options. So much for filthy. They were basically the clean freaks of the medieval world. 9. People in the Middle Ages believed the Earth was flat. This myth makes our ancestors sound like complete idiots, but it's false. Educated people in the Middle Ages knew the Earth was round. They'd been reading Aristotle and ancient Greek texts for centuries. Columbus didn't prove the world was round. The real argument was about how big it was. And spoiler alert, his math sucked. He thought Asia was way closer than it really was. So the real story isn't brave genius versus flat Earth dummies. It's bad math versus a giant planet. 10. The Titanic was called unsinkable. The legend says the ship's builders bragged it could never go down, setting up the perfect tragic twist. But the company never actually said that. What they wrote was practically unsinkable, which is basically corporate legalese for pretty sturdy. After the disaster, the press stripped out the practically and turned it into the headline of the century. And once the movie Titanic hit theaters, the myth became untouchable. Irony sells way better than boring truth. 11. George Washington's wooden teeth. Everyone's been told the first US president clacked around with wooden dentures. Sounds rustic, almost patriotic, but nope. Washington's dentures were made of human teeth, animal bone, and ivory, held together with metal springs. They looked terrifying and felt worse. The wooden teeth myth probably came from the brownish stains on his dentures. So America's founding father didn't smile less because of dignity. He smiled less because his teeth looked like props from a horror movie. 12. Salem witches were burned at the stake. The chilling legend says accused witches in Salem went up in flames like in Europe. But in reality, not a single Salem witch was burned. 19 were hanged, one man was pressed to death with stones, and many others rotted in jail. The burning at the stake myth got imported from European witch trials. So while Salem was brutal, the infamous bonfires were never lit. 13. Medieval people never bathed. Popular imagination says everyone in the Middle Ages stank so badly they practically invented perfume. But records show towns had public bathhouses, and bathing was a normal social activity until later plagues scared people away from shared tubs. Nobles and peasants alike used soap made from animal fat and ash. Sure, they weren't showering daily with scented body wash, but they weren't walking clouds of filth either. The dirty medieval image is mostly propaganda. 14. Einstein's brain was special. Here's a modern myth. People say his brain was uniquely huge, explaining his genius. After his death, scientists did examine it and found it was actually a bit smaller than average. What made him extraordinary wasn't size, it was how he used it. But hey, saying Einstein's brain was normal doesn't sell science magazines. So the myth of the magic brain stuck around, giving lazy students everywhere false hope. 15. Nero fiddled while Rome burned. The juicy image is an emperor literally playing music as his empire went up in smoke. Problem 1, the fiddle didn't even exist yet. Problem 2, historical sources placed Nero in another city when the fire broke out. He rushed back and organized relief efforts, even paying for shelter with his own money. The fiddling story was political slander that outlived him by 2,000 years. If Nero played anything, it was his rivals, not a violin. 16. Let them eat cake wasn't the only royal misquote. Another famous one, blood is thicker than water. People think it means family always comes first. The original proverb was actually the opposite. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning chosen bonds can be stronger than family ties. Over time, it got flipped upside down, and now people quote it at family reunions, like it was carved on stone tablets. 17. Salem witches weren't the only ones misrepresented. Medieval torture had its own fake star, the Iron Maiden. You know the spiky coffin designed to slowly impale victims? Total invention. No records from the Middle Ages mention it being used. It was cooked up in the 1700s as a freaky museum prop to shock visitors. Real torture was brutal enough. Racks, branding, thumbscrews. But nope, history fans wanted a horror prop. So the Iron Maiden was basically medieval clickbait. 18. The Founding Fathers were devoutly Christian. That's the myth taught in countless patriotic tales. The truth? Many of them were deists, believers in a higher power, but skeptical of organized religion. Thomas Jefferson even created his own Bible by literally cutting out the miracles. They weren't Bible-thumping preachers, they were Enlightenment thinkers. But philosophical nerds with scissors doesn't sound as inspiring as Christian patriots. 19. Chameleons aren't the only misunderstood animals. Lemmings supposedly commit mass suicide by running off cliffs. This depressing myth exploded after a 1950s Disney documentary literally staged the event by pushing lemmings off a cliff for the camera. The footage went viral long before YouTube, and suddenly lemmings were doomed as symbols of blind conformity. The truth? The poor rodents were victims of movie magic and bad PR. 20. The American cowboy was always a rugged white hero. Wrong. Up to a quarter of real cowboys were African American, and many more were Mexican vaqueros whose traditions built the cowboy culture. The lasso, the hat, the cattle driving techniques, all borrowed from Mexico. Hollywood whitewashed the cowboy into John Wayne, erasing the diversity of the frontier. The myth sells better on screen, but the reality was far richer. And there it is. 20 of history's biggest lies exposed in plain sight. From emperors smeared by propaganda to myths cooked up by marketing, it's proof that truth really is stranger than fiction. Which of these shook you the most? Tell me in the comments below. If your mind feels blown but entertained, smash that like button, share this video, and hit subscribe, because even bigger history bombs are coming next.